Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to introduce the folks who will be speaking with you today. First, we have Jeff Scott, President and CEO of Fraser Surrey Docks. We also have Courtney Wallace, spokesperson for BNSF. Jeff will make a brief statement, then Jeff and Courtney will be available to take a few media questions. I'll now turn it over to Jeff to begin.
Thank you, Nicola. Fraser Surrey Docks will undertake an environmental impact assessment and additional enhancements as part of Port Metro Vancouver's review of Fraser Surrey Docks' proposed direct transfer coal facility. We are confident that our proposed direct transfer coal facility can handle coal safely and without significant impact to the community and the environment. While we believe the coal dust mitigation measures we have planned were sufficient, we recognize the need for our neighbors and others to be reassured that every effort is being undertaken to ensure a safe project. At the request of Port Metro Vancouver, FSD is proposing additional coal dust control measures and has commissioned SNC-Lavalin to conduct an independent environmental impact assessment of the project. The EIA is expected to be completed by the end of September, at which time we will submit it to Port Metro Vancouver. In addition, FSD is incorporating the following new dust control enhancements for the project. A coal stockpile will no longer be used at the terminal. Originally, it was proposed for use as a contingency in case a train arrived and no barges were available. To minimize the risk of this occurring, additional barges will be used and the rail delivery schedules will be modified when necessary. BNSF Railway has voluntarily agreed to establish a respray facility which will reapply an improved topping agent to coal in loaded rail cars. Topping agents are first applied at the mines in the Powder River Basin located in Montana and Wyoming in the western United States. Thirdly, a suppression and binding agent will also be added to the coal at Fraser Surrey Docks as it is being loaded onto the barges for transit to Texada Island to contain coal dust on the barges during transit. This is in addition to the previously incorporated measures, including the profiling of the coal on the barges to reduce turbulence and preventing the coal from catching wind, adding water to wet the coal in the barges to prevent dusting, and not operating the barges in wind conditions greater than 40 kilometers per hour. We have carefully listened to the community concerns, and we believe these additional project components provide further certainty around dust mitigation for the terminal, rail, and barge operations, and represent a significant enhancement to an already safe and reliable proposal. I will now take questions.
Jay, if you could have people queue for questions at this point in time.
Mr. Scott will now be taking some questions. At this time, I would like to remind everyone, in order to ask a question, press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Once again, we please ask that you limit your questions to 1 at a time. To ask another question, you will need to press star, then the number 1 again. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. Our first question comes from the line of Gordon Hooksborough with Vancouver Sun. Your line is open.
Well, good afternoon. Question around the scope of the assessment. We heard from Port Metro Vancouver that it would include the facility itself, as well as the rail traffic from the border, and including along the Fraser River. Trying to get a sense if it extends beyond that. Does it include, ocean travel as well as the Texada Island portion?
The environmental impact analysis will look at parameters of the project within the scope of the project. And SNC-Lavalin has been hired to provide an independent and unbiased review of all the mitigation strategies, enhancements, and project details to assess the impact on health and the environment.
The next question comes from the line of Andrea McPherson with News 1130 Radio. Your line is open.
It's our understanding, Fraser Docks hiring its own consultants to do all this. Wouldn't it be better to have somebody completely independent to look into human health impacts?
SNC-Lavalin is a professional firm with integrity and highly qualified experts. Their reputation is built on providing an unbiased professional opinion. and we're very confident in SNC being able to provide an independent analysis.
The next question comes from the line of Sean Kolenko with Business in Vancouver newspaper. Your line is open.
Well, the data that SNC Lavalin compiles in their assessment, is that the data you're going to use in your EIA that will go back to Port Metro Vancouver?
We have been compiling data over the last 10 to 12 months of the project. We have been assessing health and assessing environmental impacts as we work through the project. All of that data, all of that analysis will be made available to SNC Lavalin. They will review all of the analysis and details compiled to date. That will include feedback and concerns raised by the community and stakeholders. And based upon that review, they will provide their professional opinion on the project as it relates to health and the environment.
Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. The next question comes from Jane McIvor with BC Shipping News. Your line is open.
Thanks. Hi, Jeff, just curious, you mentioned that the original proposal, you had sufficient plans in place for dust mitigation, both on the train BNSF coming in as well as the barges going out. Could you just, and my apologies, but can you just tell us what those original requirements were and how much additional is being done?
Sure. We had originally looked at a stockpile on our terminal for use under emergency situations conditions, and that would be a condition under which we had a supply chain failure. We had also the railway, BNSF Railway, in conjunction with the mine sites, we're going to add a topping agent, or we'll be adding a topping agent.
This is Courtney Wallace, BNSF. We have a rule in place, and our customers out in the Powder River Basin follow, and basically what that rule requires is twofold. One, at the mines, we require a topping agent to be sprayed. We have 5 approved topping agents, and then the way the coal is loaded, it is in a bread loaf shape. And as part of the request from Port Metro Vancouver, we have voluntarily agreed to establish a respray station, and we're still working on the details of where that will be located and some other details. But once the coal starts coming up to Fraser Surrey Docks, that will be resprayed as well.
And I think it's important to understand, while we believe that the coal dust mitigation measures we had planned originally were sufficient, we recognize the need for our neighbors and others to be reassured that every effort is being undertaken to ensure a safe project.
The next question comes from Gordon Cooksborough with Vancouver Sun. Your line is open.
Good afternoon again. Just trying to clarify my question. I just wasn't quite clear. So you mentioned that it's everything that involves in the scope of your project. So Texada is not part of your project, so therefore it's not being assessed as part of the SEM Lavalin report.
Correct. The scope of the assessment will include the area within the scope of the project and within the jurisdiction of Port Metro Vancouver.
All right, thanks. Next, we have the line of Wendy Stuck with Global Mail. Your line is open.
Well, hi, good afternoon. I was just wondering if you have a sense of the additional costs that will result from this and these extra requirements, and also what kind of delays you might be looking at.
We haven't assessed the overall costs, and we can't disclose that figure at this point in time. But we continue to work through the permit process with the port, and we will be incorporating these new enhancements into our redefined scope within that process, and we'll continue working with the port on the permit process.
The next question comes from Andrea McPherson with News 1130 Radio. Your line is open.
Hi, just hoping you guys can be a little bit more specific about what sort of human health impacts we'll be looking into here.
We will be specifically looking at the impacts of coal on human health. We will be looking at the impacts of the dust through the supply chain and through the handling of the product. We will be looking at noise, and traffic and other components in terms of added transportation, added volume in the transportation chain.
Next, we have the line of Sean Kolenko with Business in Vancouver newspaper. Your line is open.
Why weren't some of these alterations that you guys are just talking about now, and then they spoke of earlier at the Port Metro Vancouver meeting, why weren't these just part of the original project?
We believe that we had provided a safe and reliable project under its original conditions that would not have significant impact to the community. We still believe that to be the case. However, we do recognize the need for our stakeholders to be assured that every effort is being undertaken to ensure a safe project, and we have voluntarily, in conjunction with discussions with the port, have undertaken this to enhance an already safe project.
And this is Courtney with BNSF, and I would just add that we firmly believe our coal loading rule effectively addresses coal dust, but above all else, adding this additional voluntary measure shows that we are committed to providing a safe and reliable way of transporting all our commodities, including coal, in these communities that we serve.
Once again, we have the line of Sean Kolenko with Business in Vancouver newspaper.
You're calling them voluntary measures, but they don't sound voluntary to me if Port Metro Vancouver is making you do them. So why call them voluntary?
Port Metro Vancouver has asked us to consider these measures as part of our permit process, and we have taken those under consideration, and they specifically asked us to enhance measures around the rail, around the stockpile, and around the barge, and we have taken those under considerations and have voluntarily agreed to include those in the project.
Next, we have the line of Gordon Hoekstra. Pardon me.
Okay.
I think that's it for questions. So at this point in time, I'd like to thank Courtney Wallace and Jeff Scott, and thank those media who were able to dial in and join today. And should you have any additional questions or subsequently, please get in touch with each of the companies individually. Thank you very much.
This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect.